What are we doing in the black community? The number one consumer of a Mercedes-Benz
is us.
Us. The number one consumer of a Gucci and a Louis Vuitton, us. And they don't even advertise. Why is it that in the black community, we are always the number one consumer, but we're not the number one creators?
So you just said it, the fact that there's consumers and creators. For so long, we assume success based on consumption.
Welcome to Closing the Gap Podcast, The Truth About Wealth. I am your co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our host and the owner of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton. Wilbert.
I'm blessed and highly favored. I'm blessed and highly favored. Every day is a good day. I'm blessed and highly favored. Made a promise, we're going to tell the Lord thank you anyhow.
All right. Yes, indeed. You have to speak those things as though they are, right? Yes. We have to proclaim these things over our lives, and that's what we want all of you to do. That even when things are going good or bad, make up in your mind to give God thanks, give God praise, that everything will be well. And that's how we can continue to stay on a righteous and holy path. Because when we come here on this show, we want to give you good information, and give it to you in a godly way where you get the full understanding of what it is that you need from us. And then be able to go and find not only us, but find whatever it is that you need in life. And so, Will, with that being said, just need you to get that out for a minute.
Yes.
Just breathe, you know what I'm saying? And then we moving into the close of 2025, right? So this is a good time to kind of just pace ourselves, exhale, breathe. And what we want to do today is we want to take time to reflect on the year, reflect on the year overall, 2025, what's been going on, and then also just reflecting on us, our relationship podcast, and what we've been doing, what we've been talking about, how we've been functioning. And I think that our reflection helps us have a greater sense of receptivity.
Okay.
Right. Because when you look back and gain an understanding of what has transpired in the past, you see the good and the bad. You see what you have been able to do that has worked well. But then conversely, you also see where you've had your missteps. And it's in our missteps that we realize, like, oh, I wasn't open to receive the information. I wasn't open to receive the help that was coming to me. I wasn't open to hear from God and what God was communicating to me. But you can only get that many times if you take the time to reflect.
Yes.
To look back and say, okay, all right, I had success in this. Why did I have success? And most times we had success because we were patient, we were calm, we were listening to God. We weren't anxious about what was going on, right? We were prayerful, we were thoughtful, we were humble in those moments. And so that's what we want to do today, everybody, is take the time to reflect so that we can have a greater sense of receptivity.
Absolutely. And one of the key things in what you said, and I'm going to add on to that, is when we look back in retrospect, is look at, why do we have success or why we didn't have success. A lot of times, we can look back, and one of the reasons why we had success or didn't is because we planned or lack thereof.
That's correct.
And moving, impatiently, moving too hastily, moving without a proper plan and direction can lead you nowhere. You don't want to spend time, just driving around in circles and with no destination in sight. We want to make sure that we know exactly where we're going, but also we lay out a plan of action on how we're going to get there. All too often, I think, when we don't have success, it's due to our lack of planning. We didn't prepare for success. And for me, I'm very big on the preparation, because I know if I do the preparation and I take certain steps, I'm going to land at a certain destination. And even if I don't make it all the way to that destination, I'm going to be closer to that destination than what I was before I started.
That's true.
Because I've moved in a certain way and I had a certain plan of action, and I know more than likely what the results will be if I follow this chain of command. But unfortunately, all too often, I feel like in today's day and time, because life comes at you fast, and life happens fast, and we get a lot of things that happen to us, from a day-to-day standpoint. News is coming at us 24/7. So our thought process and patterns are changing constantly because of the way we receive information. Because it used to be we had to wait till 10 o'clock at night or the 5 o'clock news to find out what was going on around the world or what was happening. Nowadays, there's things going on and happening every minute of every day.
Yeah.
And we know about it.
Yeah.
We know about something that happened in Chicago, in New York, in Dallas, in Florida, in our own cities, in our hometowns, on the job, off the job. So we know about things so instantaneous now that it now affects us in our decision making a lot more. Whereas, those generations past, they would sit down and take their time and they would gather all the information at one time. And then they would kind of properly plan out the day.
Yeah.
Whereas because we're so constantly bombarded with information and with, opportunities and things, it's hard for us to kind of find our way through the weeds. So it puts us in a position where we end up making more bad decisions, I believe, because we do more acting and less planning. Whereas I'm of the mindset we should do less acting and more planning.
Yeah.
But the acting that I do would be more beneficial. It's just like I tell my son all the time. I said, look, you've been busy doing activity, but it ain't been productivity. We want to make sure whatever we're doing is actively leading to productivity. We don't want to just be busy.
Right.
We want to be busy getting better.
Right.
So I think a lot of times, today, we spend a lot of time getting caught up in what's going on around us, and it makes us rush. We've talked about that on a number of different episodes, and we can see it in our food today. And everything is microwave, DoorDash, and quick, fast, and hurry. Ain't nobody spend no time on their stove. And that's apropos right now because, of course, going into the holidays, of course, with Thanksgiving here, nobody wants a microwave Thanksgiving dinner. You want somebody to go in their kitchen and take their time, and you want some fresh butter beans, you want some fresh black eyed peas, you want that good skillet cornbread, you want to take your time, and you want somebody to fry that turkey. You want to make sure that mama put a foot in that dressing and made sure everything was done homemade and to perfection. But because it's done that way, it means it takes a little bit longer in order to see the end result.
Yeah.
You got to wait a little while longer. Them hunger pains kick in a little bit more than normal because you're waiting on that meal, that you're putting that ham in the oven. And you got to let it cook. You got to let it simmer. You got to, pour a little Coca-Cola on there, a little tab, if you know what that is. So you know what that is. That's back in the country now. When you from the country, you pour a little tab on that ham and let it cook, let it simmer a little bit. So, to bring out some of the flavor and the juices in that ham. So, but at the end of the day, the results are, in my opinion, more complete, the more thorough. That meal is better from beginning to end. And it's a reason why you sleep when you're done eating. You just ready to go to sleep.
Yeah, you got the
Because think about it. How often when you order DoorDash or Uber Eats, after you finish that meal, are you actually content and you full to the point where you actually want to go to sleep? It don't hit the same. The nourishment is not the same.
Yeah.
There's something about that good home cooked soul food meal where after you're done, the whole house go to bed. Everything just quiet. You ain't got to tell the kids to be quiet and slow down and do anything.
Yeah.
Everybody just falls into a little isolated coma for an hour or two, and then wake up and say, you know what? Decide if I'm going to do this again or I'm going to go ahead and enjoy some of this dessert and enjoy the rest of Thanksgiving. But that's the cause and effect of the planning and preparation that was being done as opposed to the quick, fast, and in the hurry. So, right now, if anything, you want to slow down with your finances. You want to make sure your finances have been slow smoked.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that it's been cooked thoroughly and cooked properly. You want it made from scratch. You don't want to get rich quick or get it quick, fast, in a hurry. You want to make sure that you're taking your time and you've planned it out and you understand exactly where you are, but also where you're trying to go. And now you've mapped out a plan that can help get you there.
Yeah. The plan. So let's reflect back on the plan that we've had, right? Let's go there first before we go into reflecting on what's been going on in the news so much. Let's reflect back on our plan. Our plans come and, teach people how to build generational wealth, right? Through this podcast, and then also to give them the truth about wealth. We've been recommending that people really lean on professionals.
Absolutely.
Throughout this year, getting a plan and seeking professionals to get done what needs to be done. Because you can always get somebody to do anything, but how well it's done is based on is that their profession. Much like you said, our foreparents, they cooked those meals because that's what they did. It was a profession to them. They were well trained, and it was all that they did. Versus now, when you get a meal from DoorDash out of a restaurant, well, that's somebody that really does not. Many times, somebody that just comes in and just has a job. They don't care about how good the food is. It's just assembly line. Okay, I'm just doing this because I need to work. And this is a job that I can get. And this is the order that has come in through the queue. And so since I am working here, I'm going to fill this order. And I don't have any love or care about it at all. And so what we've been trying to tell everybody this year is to find somebody that loves and cares and is well trained in what it is that they do. And that's very important, because once you do that, then you know that you are getting the best advice and the best knowledge that is available in the market. Cool. And sometimes, Wilbert, I think that we don't seek that out oftentimes because we don't feel as though we deserve to have the best. All right, so I want to pause right there and just tell everybody, look, you deserve to get the best. You deserve to have the best. You're worth more than having menial results in your finances. You are worth more than just having bad health. You are worth more than just being subjected to being used by other people. But you need to understand that God says that you are the lender and not the borrower. And when we say you are the lender and not the borrower, we're not just talking about money. Right. We are on Closing the Gap podcast. We do talk about money, but we're not just speaking about money. What we're saying is that you are the one that God would download information into, that you can spread the information, that you can spread the good knowledge, that you can be the one that does the good work, that you are not the one that always is the one that is in need. But no, if you pray, seek God in all that you do, then God will pour out into you all that you need, and then you will be a storehouse of information and blessings that will overflow to somebody else. And so your blessings will be able to be lent out to others. And so I want you to realize that as we get ready to move forward into the new year and you reflect on where you've been and what you've done, realize that you are worth more than what you have faced this year. If this year has not worked out like you wanted it to, financially, spiritually, in your home, on your job, and I know some of these have been factors that have happened because of, what's going on in society, we're coming here to continue to encourage you. So that's part of my reflection for who we are, what we've been doing. That has been our plan. That is our plan. And that's the core of who we are, is to continuously, year after year, episode after episode, day by day, whether you see us on the podcast or whether you listen to us on the podcast or whether you meet with us in person, our job, our desire is to encourage you to become all that God wants you to be. And that everything that you have, that you will be able to utilize it for the goodness and the graces that God has in store for you. So that's my reflection, Will, is just that encouragement, letting everybody know why we're here and what type of plan, or as some folks say, what type of time we are on.
Well, absolutely. And I'm gonna add on to that, and I want to take it a step further from the standpoint of, we speak heavily and consistently and continuously about seeking that professional help. But I want to make sure we got to do a better job of understanding what comes with professional help too. I think a lot of times when we get professional help, we can't appreciate professional help because we're not used to working with professionals, so we don't understand maybe the time that they take, because they don't rush things. They don't skip steps. See, anybody that's a professional, is going to operate according to a system and a plan. They're going to have a way of doing things that they consistently do, and we have to trust in that process. And because we're not used to that process, not to try to skip steps and cut corners and trying to make it our process, because your process got you in the situation you in. Our process is to get you out of the situation you in and put you on a better path to success. So don't go into a professional's office or professional setting trying to take what you've been doing into that setting. That's where the mistake is made, because you've listened to God, hopefully, and God has brought you to that particular office or brought you to that professional. Well, now it's, you got to trust that professional to do that professional job. And if you're working with a professional, they're going to be slower to move and slower to speak. They're going to listen a whole lot more than they talk in the beginning. It's going to be some conversation because they're going to want to understand everything that you have going on. Their job is to see what you don't see within that profession that could be good or bad for you. My job is to understand you, figure out where you want to go, and help put a financial plan together to get you there. Now, that financial plan may not always be comfortable, but it's a plan that's built around getting you where you say you want to go. And anytime we have to make some sacrifices to do some things that are outside of our normal comfort zone, is going to be uncomfortable. And I think that's where a lot of times we get lost and we get hung up, is because when we do seek a professional and all of a sudden the process is different than what we've been used to. I have people to come and sit down with me and say, Mr. Hamilton, what's the next step? When do I just give you the money and you just start investing? I said, no. We got to have a conversation first. We got to sit down, and I need you to complete some paperwork so I can get a good understanding of your background and where you are and what you got. I need to know what you're doing on your job. I need to know what you've done outside the job. I need to know what you've done in your past that shaped your mindset and your ideas as to how we're going to go about this thing. I need to know, what is your thought process when it comes to investing? I need to understand, what is your risk tolerance, so I understand what you're comfortable putting in a volatile position and what you're not willing to put in a volatile position. So these are things that I have to understand on a personal level. They go into my decision making to help you on a professional level. And people don't understand sometimes that, this is all a part of a process. And the process is done that way. So you're never in a situation where you got to go back and start off at square one. We want to build that foundation on that rock. We want to build that house on the rock and not on the sand, so it doesn't come tumbling down because we got a shaky foundation. We want to make sure that we build it on that rock, and building on that rock means that we got to have that come to Jesus meeting. We got to sit down and we got to get down to the truth of understanding of what we're trying to do. So one thing I want to encourage all the people to do is, when you go seek a professional, be honest and transparent, because nobody can help you and give you what you want to have if you're not giving them the full story. Unfortunately, too many times in our community, we want to give somebody 75% of the story, but want them to give us 100% result. It's not going to work. You're only going to get what you give out. So make sure, anytime you go seek a professional, as an attorney, financial advisor, an accountant, CPA, doctor, whoever it may be, any professional, make sure that you're telling them everything, because everything is relevant when it comes to the decision-making process and why they do things a certain way. It's not your responsibility to determine what's important and what's not, because the very thing that you deem as unimportant may be extremely important and may end up being detrimental to you. So make sure you go seek out professional help. Make sure you trust that professional help. And if you don't trust that professional help when you get it, there may be God in your ear saying, this may not be the person for you. Go seek somebody else. Go seek more than one person. You have the right in the free range to seek a number of different professionals, gather some information, diagnose the situation, and see what God leads you. If it's 2, 3, 4, 5 financial advisors, if it's 2, 3, 4, 5 CPAs or attorneys, that is completely fine. That is well within your right, because you got to make the decision on who you're going to trust to help you get to the next level. And the same way you had to trust God to get you out your mess is the same way you're going to have to trust their professionals to help elevate you from a personal standpoint. So I just want to implore everyone, understand that when you're working with a professional, it's a new relationship. Every relationship that's going to be successful is going to be rooted in the truth, just like your relationship with Christ.
Yeah, and that's it. Well, because as you said, that's exactly what I thought about the relationship with Christ, that when we come to knowledge of Christ and go to God, we can't fool God.
Absolutely.
We can't lie to God and try to come to God and say, okay, I'm going to live for you now, but then I want to bring with me everything that I was already doing previously. No, I have to come to God. I have to lay it all on the altar. I have to repent and I have to lay it all before him. And then if I lay it all down, then I can get up as a new creature.
Absolutely.
And that's what we want everybody to do as we go into this new year, is getting ready to reflect now so that you can receive what's in store, so that you can be a new person going into 2026. And we'll be back after this break. Welcome back to Closing the Gap Podcast, Truth About Wealth. I am your co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our host and owner of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton. And our show today is entitled Reflections and Receptivity. We're reflecting on the year, and then we're getting ready so that we can be ready to receive what's in store for us this coming year, 2026. So Wilbert, let's go into some of these different headlines that's transpired over 2025. It's been a lot.
Absolutely.
We talked about much of it, but let's hit on some high points as we go down through here, because I think it's key for us to do this, because this will prepare us for 2026 to realize, okay, what all has transpired over this year already, because it's been a whole lot. You know, our new president came in literally guns a blazing. With shovel and axes and with a demolition crew, breaking down, tearing down all of the structures that we've been foundationally set up on in the American society. So let's talk about the first thing. This one big so-called beautiful bill.
It's the key word, so-called.
So-called.
Beautiful bill. It depends on who you are, how beautiful it's going to be. And, the biggest thing is to understand is, first and foremost, you can never understand how something's going to affect you if you don't understand your current situation. So the first thing that we got to do is, like we said in the last section, with the previous, episode and early this morning, is we got to make sure that we seek that professional help so we know where we stand. The biggest problem that I have with a lot of this is, people make assumptions about things that they don't know if they're just going to affect them or not. We start getting up in arms about stuff, and, we talked about it on the last show. We worried about, what Trump doing or not doing, and we don't understand how what he's doing is affecting us or not. We don't understand, how are we participating, or are we just sitting back here complaining? So at the end of the day, we got to understand where we are first and foremost. So, make sure you sit down and get your assessment made. See, the biggest mistake I see a lot of people make, especially business owners, entrepreneurs, and people who are not W-2 employees, is waiting till March to have a conversation about your taxes. That conversation is supposed to be happening right now.
Right now.
You're supposed to know what your tax situation looks like for the year, next year, that you're going to have to pay right now today. So it needs to be a conversation with your CPA, with your tax professional, with your tax director, whoever you work with. You need to be having a conversation right now with them about exactly where you stand, so you understand what can you do differently between now and the end of the year in preparation for next year. But see, that comes back to planning. That comes back to professional help. See, all the things that we've been preaching and pushing people towards are the things that set you up for success. And, so we got to understand, you can't be a jack of all trades and master of none. We got to go in and make sure that we've done some preparation and planning, because there have been some changes due to the big, beautiful bill. There's been some adjustments in the tax rates. There's been adjustments in, capital gains taxes. There's been some adjustments when it comes to estate taxes and legacies and things of that nature. But if you don't know where you stand financially, and you don't understand what your net worth is, or even how to calculate your net worth, how do you know if these things are affecting you or not? If you're not invested in the stock market, or you're not playing the real estate game where you're moving properties and selling properties, how is the capital gains taxes affecting you? So a lot of times we complaining about stuff, that ain't even affecting us in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, I want it to affect us. That means we're participating in these things. So that means you're investing in the stock market if you're paying capital gains. That means you made some real estate sales and transactions if you have some capital gains tax. So understanding that is key. And in order for the changes that have been made to how RMDs are made, required minimum distributions are made on IRA and retirement accounts, those things only matter if you save and you have a retirement account. If you ain't saved into your 401k, your IRA, your SEP plan, your 403b, your 457 account, your TSP, if you're not saving into those accounts, the changes that were made into how those distributions are going to be handled and how those things are going to be taxed, if you haven't planned to put money away into that, the change is not going to affect you. So all too often, we sit around and we complain about a lot of stuff that really ain't going to affect us in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Now, we need for these things to affect us more, and they are. And a lot of misconceptions out about our communities that, you know, we're not as well off financially. And no, that's really not the case. We are making more money than we ever have collectively. The problem is none of that money is circulating in our community, and that money is not being reinvested, and that money is not being passed on to the next generation properly because of the lack of planning, because of the lack of professional help that we have inside of our community. So it's super important for all the people on the sound of my voice. If you have retirement accounts, if you own homes, it is imperative that you meet with a professional so you can assess how do these changes affect how you take distributions from your retirement account? How do these tax rate changes affect you and your withdrawals? Because guess what? If tax rates are going up, and you're taking money out of your account, that means if you take the same amount of money out as you did last year, that means you're going to get less money because the tax rates are higher. So we got to understand that. We got to know, why is that check short? Well, because tax rates are changing. You need to know if tax rates have been bumped up and you take out too much out of your account, that means that you're going to be paying even more in income taxes on all of that money. So understanding how the tax code is being adjusted, understanding what you can do to offset those things, understanding how you can defer required minimum distributions. Most people don't understand, especially if you're in a situation where you work, you've been successful, you've done the things you're supposed to do, and you have to take required minimum distribution, but you're like, Mr. Hamilton, I don't necessarily need the money for anything. And I see this all the time. We have a lot of people that live within their means that have been very successful. They have pensions from working at the federal government or pensions from working with the state, of Alabama or some other institution. They have Social Security. So they're like, Mr. Hamilton, I can actually live on my Social Security, my pension. I don't actually need my distribution from my retirement account that I got to take to RMD. So what do I do with it? Well, there are ways to offset that. But guess what? You got to know that, you can take that requirement of distribution and send that straight to a nonprofit organization and get a tax deduction where it doesn't even hit your income tax. So now it doesn't even hit you personally. It goes straight to the nonprofit. But if you take that money to yourself, it becomes taxable to you, and then you gift it, still that's added on to your tax base. But if we'd have just skipped the step and sent it straight to the nonprofit, guess what? Now we've reduced our overall tax liability, and we still get credit for the deduction. So there's things that you can do, but you got to get some professional help to do it. So there's help that can be had. But if you're not working with professionals, if you're not working with people that do this on a day in, day out basis, that put together plans, understand how to utilize the tax code, understand how to put you in a better situation, because we don't want tax evasion, but we do want tax avoidance. The tax code was written for you to understand how to utilize it, not for you to evade it. If you evade it, you go into jail. If you avoid it, then you just utilizing what's in front of you. We have a president that has told you out of his mouth that guess what? He takes the tax code and he utilizes it to his benefit.
That's correct.
He has not went to jail for tax evasion in any way, shape, form, or fashion because he's using the code as it has been written. It's our responsibility to work with the professionals that understand that tax code that can help us utilize it in a way to be beneficial for ourselves. It's our responsibility to understand what we have in retirement accounts, understand how that money is going to get taxed, because guess what? If you're taking out more and the tax rate has gone up and you pull the money out of your 401k or your IRA or whatever it may be, now you're paying more income tax on that money. But also, guess what? A lot of people don't understand. Social Security is a taxable vehicle too. Up to 85% of Social Security actually can be taxed. So if you take out too much out of one, guess what's going to get hit hard on the other? Now more of your Social Security is getting taxed at a higher rate. So understanding what's available to you, understanding what you can do to possibly offset or at least minimize the tax liability. There's no way to completely eliminate it unless all of your income is coming from non-taxable sources or tax-free sources. But there's ways to minimize. We just have to understand and work with the professionals to see what kind of plan and preparation do we need to put in place to be able to take advantage of it.
Yes, indeed. Proper planning is the key to success. And so we reflecting there, Will, that's all part of everything that we're promoting, everything that we want everybody to do. And we want you to get ready that if you didn't get your plans together properly during this year, don't worry about it. But then now is the time to hit the reset button as we reflect on the mistakes we've made and the success that we've had, that we can be ready to receive the information now. So we want you to be receptive to what's going on now. We're not lambasting anybody about what you haven't done, but we're just trying to encourage you that, hey, if you have done it, look, kudos, good job, continue to stay on the right path. But if you haven't done it, it's time to take the time, reflect, reset, and be receptive to the information that's being received now. So Will, the next thing, as we talked about that, Will, other thing that's been happening in this news cycle, and I know one of the words, I'm not even going to say it right now. I'm just going to talk about inflation. Let's talk about inflation. I'm not going to talk about the other T word because I think we just, you know what I'm saying?
Wore that one out.
Yeah, wore that one out. You know what I'm saying? It's key, but to your point, it affects us, but not to that extent, right? But inflation is having an adverse effect on us. So how do we navigate this inflation that we're going through right now from your vantage point?
Well, ironically, as much as I've got tired of hearing about the T word.
Okay.
Which is tariffs. We'll say, throw the tariffs on out there. We've been hearing about tariffs for all year long, so we blew in the face. We had a president that's been, running his mouth about tariffs and all these different things that he's going to do. And, and tariffs and inflation, they've been kind of synonymous with this year. Just from a standpoint of, one has affected the other. Mm-hmm. The tariffs have obviously driven up prices. For consumers and for producers, because it costs more if I got to pay a tax on essentially the imports and things that I'm bringing in. If I got to pay more for the T-shirt that I'm ordering from China, that means I got to charge you more money for the T-shirt when I sell it to you because it costs me $5 more per shirt. So guess what? I got to charge you $7 more so I can still make my profit and keep moving things forward. But the adverse effect and what we talked about, and one of the things I said, of course, in the last episode, is why I've been, kind of so adamant. And I get to a point where I'm like, man, what we doing? We're going to keep talking about the problem, or we're going to try to solve the problem. Is tariffs have been put in place, obviously, and they've driven up the prices of goods and services. That's created, of course, inflation. And we felt the inflation at the grocery store, at the car dealership, a lot of different places. I mean, car parts, a lot of things we've seen what inflation has done and how it's increased so dramatically, especially in comparison to the wages and the wage gap that we have. Because ain't no pay raise been happening. Of course, it's been more layoffs and furloughs and things of that nature. It's been happening all year long. So because it's done that, and it resulted in higher prices and income not being, adjusted, one thing that it's obviously done is that if prices of things have gone up and companies are still selling those products, that means that, guess what? Somebody's making some money. That means there's been some benefit to someone for all the trades and transactions that have been happening. And now, has that created more volatility in certain areas? Yes. But there's been a lot of activity and productivity around a lot of areas as well. Okay. When we talk about and we think about what this administration has done, besides the tariffs, they've been real big as far as getting money poured into certain avenues and aspects. We talk about the amount of money that Saudi Arabia has poured into us from the standpoint of what they're investing in AI now. We're talking to the tune of $600 billion, so they're talking about up to maybe $1 trillion. The money that's going into open AI. The money that, of course, was diverted to and benefited, SpaceX and, of course, Tesla and all these companies, of course, that are owned by Elon Musk. These are all things that have been beneficial from an economic standpoint if you're in the market and you've been investing in those opportunities. So whereas the stock market is up double digits, even though income is dropping for most people just due to inflation overall. Right. So we got a situation that really doesn't make a lot of sense for the everyday person, where you got people getting laid off on one side and people not getting raises on the other, but the cost of everything around is going up tremendously. But how do we offset that? Well, my answer is all we can do is participate in the things that are growing. You don't have to take any more money to put the money that you have in your 401k into those opportunities. You can invest in those opportunities that are producing at a great rate. Now, do we need to make sure we diversify because there's a lot of volatility in the stock market? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But anytime something is being bought and sold, that means there's opportunities available. We just got to be able to participate in the opportunities. And the one great thing we do have, in this country is we have an open architecture investment platform where you can literally go on your phone and invest into anything that you want. You can download a Fidelity app, a Charles Schwab app, or E-Trade, or a Robinhood, whatever you want. And you can invest in all type of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds at your discretion. That is completely up to you. I'm not suggesting you go do that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to suggest you go sit down with a professional that understands your situation and evaluates where you are in totality. Understand how have the tariffs and the price adjustments and inflation affected you and your home. And the first way we do that is looking at your income and your expenses. Mm-hmm. Let's make sure we got a budget. Let's start there, because that's the first place we can tell if the tariffs and inflation have affected you personally. Okay. And we always say, I always go back to, let's keep the main thing the main thing. Yeah. And all too often in our community, we miss sight on what the main thing is. The main thing is your financial livelihood, for you to have the peace of mind to be able to go out and have success in every other area of life. If you don't have peace of mind financially, you ain't really going to be too successful in any other area of life. You can try, but it's going to be tough. It's hard to stay focused when I'm behind on my bills. Mm-hmm. We can go to gym to try to work off that stress to alleviate them for a few hours, the thought that I have of everything I'm dealing with. But when I leave back out the gym, guess what's back on my mind? Yes. When I go home, I see that bill past due. Yeah. So we have to get our finances in order. We have to take the bull by the horns and say, you know what? I got to tackle this. I got to make certain cuts. I got to be more disciplined, or I need to get a second job. I got to do what I got to do. So I have a firm belief and I would say this all the time. I do what I got to do until I do what I want to do. We got to get more comfortable doing that. See, grandmama did what she had to do. Yeah. So we could do what we wanted to do. Right. Grandmama worked 2 jobs. She worked for these folks over here cleaning up. And she worked, and was a nurse over here helping taking care of more folks. Then she babysitted everybody's kids in the neighborhood, after hours. So she made a way. She worked. She did what she had to do to put her kids in a situation where they could do what we want. And we do the same thing today. I work hard and do everything I can do and make sacrifices so my sons can live the life that they want to live. Yeah. And so we all do it to a certain extent, but we got to be more disciplined and planned in how we go about doing it. I got to have a way of going about doing it. I have to understand, what am I trying to get accomplished within my business to generate revenue, obviously, so I can be in a situation where I can afford to pay my bills so my sons can go do that. Yeah. Because guess what? If I'm not comfortable and I'm not in a position where I'm paying my bills, well, guess what? My sons are not going to be able to do. They're not going to be able to do everything they want to do. Because, hey, no, we can't go get them new joints this weekend. We can't go travel and then go on this vacation and do this and do that. Why? Well, because Dad ain't got it right now. We got to sit there and figure it out. We finna go cut some grass. We finna go try to get with Ed to see if we can pick up a trade and learn how to cut out. We finna do something different to get ourselves in a position, but most people are not willing to do certain things. Yeah. Successful people are willing to do what unsuccessful people are not. Are you willing to do any and everything you need to do with character and integrity, according to God, to help you get where you want to be? Because we do. All things work together for good. Yeah. For those that love the Lord, that are called according to his purpose. So I ain't saying go out and do anything. Yeah. But what I am saying is have the conversation with God and see what direction he leads you. So if he leads you into taking a second job for a time being, ain't nothing wrong with that. If he leads you into picking up and driving DoorDash or Uber Eats, well, guess what? If I'm going to keep ordering DoorDash or Uber Eats, somebody going to have to deliver that food. And if I'm willing to keep giving that tip, then guess what? Somebody going to have to be able to take it. So understand, we got to do what we got to do, but put together a plan of action how we're going to utilize what we're doing. So if I'm going to pick up a second job, it's not to pick up the second job to go spend that money frivolously. It's to save and build so I can build up my emergency reserves, to build up so I have some additional cushion. So now I can make this transition, or I can pay for myself to go back to school, or I can put some money away for my son's education and do some different things. Have a plan that you of action on why you're doing what you're doing. We do too much aimless moving around. We got to be more strategic in our thinking and in our movement. Because guess one thing I do know, God is not the author of confusion. So anytime things start moving too fast for me, I got to sit down and I got to slow down. And I just got to stop. And I got to ask the Lord, what are you trying to tell me? What am I missing? What am I not seeing? And usually, 9 times out of 10, He showed me exactly what I need to see. And we'll be right back after this break.
Welcome back to Closing Gap Podcast, Truth About Wealth. I am your co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our host and owner Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbur Hamilton. And we're talking about reflecting and receptivity. All right, so let's go to a recent reflection. Let's reflect here. I think it's key to continue to talk about the shutdown, right? Because the shutdown, we are just coming out of it, so to speak, in a sense of it is ended, but the ramifications of it are still lingering.
Absolutely.
And there's a potential that another will happen.
Absolutely.
And just based on, what we've seen with our current president and Congress and Senate is that, they have been hard pressed to try to come to agreements on pretty much almost anything, right?
Yeah.
They're always in disagreements, butting heads on things. But the shutdown not only affects us, when it comes to stock market, but it affects us discipline-wise. It also reveals to us whether or not we truly are willing to make plans and stick to plans.
Absolutely.
In the midst of a shutdown as well. So from your vantage point as our, financial advisor, what would you give us in reflection and receptivity? How can we navigate shutdowns as we continue to move forward?
The shutdown really moves and operates just like any other market correction that we would have.
Okay.
A lot of times we overanalyze, and we overestimate the power that something has over us and over our finances, when in reality, life is life. So whether it's a government shutdown, whether it's a pandemic shutdown, whether it's a '08 financial crash, whether it's a, Enron tech bubble. So all these things have created, we'll call almost flash crashes in the market, where the market drops deteriorated a lot in a short period of time. But one thing they all have in common is that the market rebounded in every situation.
Okay.
Now, how fast did it rebound was different in different situations based on how fast it went down. And we're speaking specifically about, of course, the shutdown we had earlier this year, the shutdown we just had, but also the talks of shutdown we had earlier this year, and the large talk we had, of course, when tariffs was hot topic at the time. And, of course, the furloughs and job cuts were very steep at that particular point in time back in that February to April time frame when, Doge was making a lot of cuts. So a lot of people losing jobs, government contracts being cut, the whole 9 yards. And everybody's wondering what's going to happen. Everybody's up in arms about, man, the stock market this, the stock market that, what's going to happen with the market. And the market had a drop in April of around 20%. But by June, that entire loss had been wiped back out, and we were back, and we were into positive gains again. So it's not overreacting, and it's all in preparation and planning. Because if you have a plan, we've taken into account. If you're working with Hamilton Wealth Advisors, if you're working with Wilbur Hamilton, we put together a plan. We've already taken into account the life events and occurrences that will happen. None of us are immune to life. None of us are immune to things happening around us. You have to expect the unexpected. It's my job as an advisor to see what you don't see. I have to plan for the things that you don't want to have happen in life. None of us plan to have bad things happen in life. Nobody wants to think about the bad things that are going to happen in life. But it's my job as the advisor to make sure that I plan for the worst possible outcome, the worst possible situation. So that's why I tell people, before you start investing money, before we take you on as a client of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, the first thing we're going to do is make sure you have insurance protection, and we're going to make sure you got 3 to 6 months emergency reserves in your savings. They're like, well, Mr. Hamilton, well, you won't invest with a person, you won't work with a client. I said, no, what? If I take you on as a client and I start investing your money before making sure that you have 3 to 6 months emergency reserves, before making sure that you have some kind of insurance protection for you and your family, I'm doing your family a disservice. Because if we invest in $500 a month, but you ain't got no life insurance, then God forbid you pass away in a car crash, your wife looking at me saying, Mr. Hamilton, why didn't we get the insurance? What's left to my kids? Well, we invested for about 6 months, so it's about, $3,000 plus interest in that account. Well, she looking at me like, what are we going to do with that $3,000? That's not even going to bury him. But if we'd have took $50 out of that $500 and made sure we at least got a term policy where you had at least $500,000 in coverage if something were to happen to you, now we're in a position to say, okay, well, at least we can pay off a house. We can pay for a funeral. We can put some money away for the kids to go to college. We can make sure at least the kids get keeping, good clothes and shoes for a period of time. We got something to help give us a cushion as we readjust and reset our lives based on what's happening around us. So, the preparation and planning is mandatory if you want to be successful. So we're going to always start there. But once we've done that and we sit down and we're going to build a financial plan, we got to understand what benefits do you have on your job? Most people don't know or understand the major benefits they have on their job and exactly how they work. They don't know if they're giving them free money or not. So we want to look into your benefits that you have and what your 401k is providing for you. If they're giving you, hey, if you put 6%, they're giving you 4%. Or if you put in, they matching you dollar for dollar up to 6%. Well, why are we not putting in 6% then? That's free money. Ain't nobody else going to give you no money. Mr. Hamilton and Hamilton Wealth Advisors ain't giving you no money. We can help you make some money, but we can't give you no money. So make sure that you're taking advantage of everything that's in front of you to now we build out a plan of success. So now if I understand, I got my emergency reserve. So guess what? When a shutdown happens, when a pandemic happens, I have some cushion to take care of things. If I lose my job and I get furloughed, or I get 25% reduction in my pay on my job because they cutting back for a little while. Guess what? I have my savings intact that now I can tap into to take care of those things. I don't have to go pull money from my investments that are now making money because, see, this is the power of the planning. The entire time this year, while we've been talking about the tariffs and the cutbacks and the layoffs, the market has been moving in a positive direction a majority of the year. And it's positive for the year from a return standpoint. So if we made sure that we did some planning, we had some savings, some emergency reserves, and we were able to weather the storm, and we're up 15% in our investment account for the year while we've weathered the storm, does the storm look that bad now? When I look at my 401k account and I've seen that I've made money and I'm closer to retirement this year than I was last year, as bad as the year was. But you got to have some planning and some preparation. And because that's key, we had a lot of people asking back in April, Mr. Hamilton, what should I do? Should I cash out my 401k? Should I move all into cash? Should I move all into bonds? Do I need to get out of these stocks? Do I need to sell these mutual funds? And I'm like, no. We stay the course. That's why we have a plan. I didn't have to make one call to a client to say we need to make any changes because we planned for these occurrences. We were able to stay the course. We were able to keep moving forward in the same direction and take advantage. So when the market recovered, we're already in position to take advantage of the recovery. See, too many people made the adjustment, and there's a thing called opportunity loss of time value of money.
Okay.
And a lot of times we miss out on that. And I give you a perfect example. These are some statistics that, that we look into as advisors.
Okay.
If we take from 2004 up until last year, up until just say through 2024, all the different occurrences that have happened during that time, it's been a lot of crashes in the market during that time, right? From Enron, tech bubble, we had Desert Storm, we've had, 9/11, we had, of course, the '08 big crash. We had, of course, the flash crash earlier this year. We had the pandemic. All these things happened during that time frame. If you were to have stayed in the market that entire time and just a traditional, just say S&P 500 type fund, you will be up over 11%. But let's just say you got out for 10 days
10 days.
10 days. If
10
you took
days
out
out of
the
how many
best
years?
10 days, if you took out just the best 10 days, you missed out on the best 10 days of the market over the last 20 years. Your return drops from 11+% down to around 4.6%. Just missing 10 days. If you were to miss 20 days, their return drops down to about 2.3% from a return. So we're talking about if you stayed the course and had a plan that had you prepared to stay the course. You had some positive reinforcement. You had an advisor to talk to that could let you know how the game is played. And you stayed the course. You went from an 11% return down to, if you just got out for 10 days, you down to 4%. If you got out for 20 days, you down to 2.3%. Let's just say, you know what? You got out for a month. The best 30 days in the market you missed during that time frame. Your return is 0.
You see,
You're barely positive.
down, right? You see.
This is the power of being able to stay the course. This is why you hear a lot of times, once you're in, you got to stay in.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we don't reposition while we in, though. So there's ways of repositioning. There's things that you can do from a systematic standpoint, and I don't want to get too detailed.
Okay.
I don't want to give too much game. That's why you got to come see me and work the advisor. But give you a little bit of game of, there's things called tax loss harvesting. There's a way of, when the market is down, maybe taking some of your gains and basically selling some of those low positions, taking advantage of losses to offset gains from a tax standpoint, eliminating a little tax liability. But at the same time, we're repositioning those things that we sold into other opportunities that are performing better at the time.
Yeah.
So there's ways of washing out tax liability while repositioning or rebalancing a portfolio to take advantage of the market and put back into things that are performing better. But these are things that you have to be doing if you're working with a professional. So I mean, people that come in my office all the time, almost down to, I've been buying my mutual funds for the last 10 years and I've been doing great. I've been making a bunch of money. I've been systematically buying. I'm saying, okay, well, that's great. You got a lot of money on paper. I said, how much of that money going to actually hit your hand? How much money is you going to have after taxes? What does your tax lot statement look like? That tax lot statement? What do you mean? No. What is the price point that you bought at each one of those stocks? What is the gain at now? What is the tax liability that you have? So if you were to sell any of these shares, what is your tax liability? And you're like, oh, I ain't think about it. Well, I just been reinvesting the whole time, so I ain't paid no taxes. So that means you owe taxes or gonna owe taxes on all of these gains at some particular point in time or future. I don't care, either you gonna pay them or your kids gonna pay them, but somebody gonna pay them. Because just like debt don't die, it transfers. So do taxes.
Yeah, man. So that's a lot of bang for your buck right there.
Yep.
And I appreciate that, because that's why we come here each week, because we want you to understand that while we talk about some things, but Wilbert is a professional in what he does, and he has the information that will help you, aid you to get where you want to be financially. That's why he's the minister of money. He has the know-all, the withal to do what needs to be done to lay you out a plan for your retirement, but not only for your retirement, but for your now, right? That you can take advantage of what the market has and what the so-called big, beautiful bill has in it, and all the tax laws that are here. Mr. Hamilton has all of that information. And so, as you were talking about that, man, a lot of that was heavy. You saw me hold my head down a couple of times, like, man, that's, thinking about what can be missed out on with just a few missteps.
Absolutely.
Right? But it also reminded me that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power, love, and of a sound mind. And so when we say that, you can't be afraid to make the investments.
Absolutely.
Right? Basically, what I'm taking from that. Don't be afraid to make the investments. Don't be afraid that when the storm in the market comes. Don't be afraid when the shutdown comes. Don't be afraid when your investment account starts to wane a bit, right? Because of what's going on in the market. But just continue to stay the course.
Yep.
And the only way that you can stay the course is, number one, I believe that you have to have that sound mind. And to have that sound mind, you have to have a firm foundation. And that's why we always come here and strive to tell everybody, you need to have a firm foundation in God. You need to be praying. You need to be trusting in God first and foremost, because without trusting in God, then every wave and wind and change that comes, you'll try to change with every wind and every wave. But when you are steadfast with God, then God will help you be steadfast and immovable and always abounding and receiving the goodness that he has prepared for us in society. So I believe, Will, that as I said earlier, God will make you the lender and not the borrower, that this is the method by which we can do it financially. Earlier, I talked about how being the lender and not the borrower is not just about finance, but then also here it is about finance. It is about having a good investment plan. It is about having a good retirement plan. It is about understanding how to manage your money correctly. And the way that we can do all these things is if we begin to trust in God. See, I believe, Will, that the trust in God helps us because God is present, but we don't see God. And that's much like what it is with the financial markets and with the stock market is. We don't really see how the money moves, right? We hear it. We hear people talk about it. We may look at our investment account and see the changes, but we don't understand the intricacies of why it makes its shifts and how it makes its turns. And that's the same way it is in our relationship with God. We don't truly understand the intricacies of God. We don't understand how God moves, but yet the unseen God, we still trust in him.
Yes.
Because we see results. And that's basically what I'm taking from what you're saying, is that as we reflect on 2025, we need to be receptive that you may not see and understand what's going on, but just trust in the results that are going to come out. Trust in the plan that Mr. Hamilton will lay out for you to guide you into your retirement and into your present and in these financial markets. But then also, you can only do that if you trust in the God that we don't see, because God is the one that continues to guide. I do know that God is the one that has made you who you are, to be able to have Hamilton Wealth Advisors and to be able to give us this platform to come on Closing the Gap, the truth, to tell people about the truth about wealth and be able to help them out, but then do it in a way that is godly, a way that is spirit-led, a way that is rooted and anchored and grounded in the Word of God as our foundational guide. Because oftentimes we get tossed by the winds and the waves and the storms and the news cycles that happen, because those things are always changing, right? We get you turn on CNN, you may be watching this news anchor today, and then all of a sudden you turn it on and you got a new news anchor. You may turn on Fox News and have a news anchor that was there yesterday is gone when it comes to tomorrow. But our God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And if we continue to put our trust in him and reflect on all that he has done throughout the annals of time, he's always made sure that those that trust in him are taken care of.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter whether, it's a one big beautiful bill. It doesn't matter whether it's, taxes and trading and inflation and tariffs. It does not matter whether the government is open or whether it's shut down. It does not matter whether we get laid off or we get hired on. It does not matter what happens in this society. When we put our trust in God and our hope is built on him, then we will have peace, we will have success, and everything will continue to work out for our good, because we're continuing to trust in him. So as we head into this new year and we're reflecting and trying to be receptive, what is one thing that you hope that we can, as a people, as a society, that we can be more receptive to as we move forward into the next year?
And, for me, it always boils down to the biggest word is always trust. We have to start trusting more, because without trust, you can't be educated, because you don't believe in the source, so you got to, like say, first trust God, and then God will lead you to the right men and women to trust. And then now you can be educated, and then now you can improve your situation in your life. But if you don't have any trust in your life, you'll never be able to actually improve your life. So we got to have some trust. We got to seek God and ask Him to point us in the right direction of trustworthy people as well. So, I'm a firm believer in being direct, with the Lord. Tell Him exactly what you're looking for. Don't leave no room for error, because I've learned God gonna give you what you ask for. It just make sure you specific in what you ask for, and you don't be vague, because you look up and like, okay, well, Lord, I did ask for this. I just wasn't specific enough in my request. So, but He followed through on what He's asked for. So for me, it's trust. It's always the biggest thing, because trust leads to education. Education leads to opportunity. Opportunities lead to results.
That's good.
For me, it's always those three things is what's going to take us into the new year. And on top of that, trust, and then being thankful.
Okay.
For regardless of what's going on, regardless of how it's going on, regardless of how you feel, tell the Lord thank you anyhow. Because at the end of the day, I've learned that your good is somebody else bad, but your bad is somebody else good. And we'll see you next time.
Yes, indeed.